I'm Victoria Iyere from Persistent Systems, and today we will be getting into the evolution of robotics in military applications. Joining us for the chat today, we have Jake McLeod from Persistent Systems and Dr. Kimberly Chamblin from Boston Dynamics. They're the global leader in developing and deploying highly mobile robots capable of tackling industry's toughest challenges. They're focused on changing your idea of what robots can do. So, Kim, Jake, pleasure to have you here today. Why don't we start with you introducing yourselves a little bit and giving us some of your background in DoD and robotics.
Thanks, Victoria. I'm really happy to be here today with you and Jake. So I'm Kim. I'm the Director of Public Sector Partnerships at Boston Dynamics. I've been with the company just shy of 3 years. I'm excited about what SPOT as a quadruped unmanned ground vehicle could do for our warfighters. When I joined the company, I came from a defense contractor. I've been a defense contractor for about 10 or 15 years, and I was a federal employee at Department of Energy and Department of Homeland Security prior to that. Have a lot of expertise in radiological and nuclear sensors. And so it's really neat to see what we can put on top of SPOT to help enable our warfighters to be more effective at their missions. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Jake.
Thanks, Victoria. My background primarily is in unmanned systems. So I have 20 years retired in the Navy, flew Group 1, Group 2 unmanned systems. When I retired in 2020, I moved to the private sector defense industry and worked with some of the larger corporations, defense corporations. I had some experience in startup. And about a year ago, I came on board as a business development director here at Persistent Systems. So happy to be part of the team and really excited to work with our partners such as Boston Dynamics.
So I kind of want to just jump right in and talk about some of the main pain points that you guys have seen in industry in the last few years, maybe 2 to 5 years. What are we looking at?
I think everybody has a data problem, and it's not limited to our companies. But what I noticed when I got to Boston Dynamics is that we had a lot of really amazing payloads on top of SPOT. We can do data collection, LiDAR, acoustic, thermal, things like the chemical and radiological and nuclear sensors that I mentioned. But pulling all that data and then getting it into a decision stream that helps enable the warfighter to make a better decision is, I think, a challenge that lots of companies are having. And of course, the DoD has to choke all that data in as well. And so right when I started, I said, we need a radio partner, and we really need to ensure that our comms backbone is the best in class. And so I had to look no further than all of the programs of record for robots. PS is tied to all of them. So we made some calls and we got this partnership going, and it's been really exciting.
Absolutely. We primarily are a networking company. We move information on the battlefield, and we network solutions and systems on the battlefield. One of the larger problem sets I see that we experience and witnessed in modern day battlefield is there can be a saturation of data. So we've done so well at operating systems in the battlefield and theaters of operations that our decision makers may be receiving too much raw data, and then there's a processing exploitation piece there. We want to deliver with partners such as Boston Dynamics and others, turnkey solutions that provide information for quicker decisions. We want to short that. A large problem too, the way that technology is improving and moving within, the DoD system, we need more collaboration with partnerships. And we've noticed that through our partnership with Boston Dynamics and others, that if we can come to the warfighter with turnkey solutions where we cooperate already, we collaborate as a source of solutions that are turnkey, that not only helps our contracting officers, our acquisition specialists to provide solutions to the warfighter, but also the collaboration there provides better capabilities to the warfighter too. So we get those capabilities quicker to the warfighter as well as decision makers.
I think everybody has a data problem, and by working together ahead of seeing these requirements and in anticipation of what the customers would like, I think we might more effectively resolve some of that. So when they get to the point of fielding, we've anticipated what those challenges are and have things kind of ready in a more efficient way. I also think if we're doing that right, we're eliminating some of the burden that we're going to put on the warfighter. Maybe it's just very simple yes or no decisions that are being made through these human machine, interactions. And then that way we're putting the human in the loop, on the target when it's most appropriate, and not burdening them with all these other things that, they're collecting from the sensors. The other thing that I think is we're not just trying to focus on one single part of the picture. I don't want to just focus on having the robot, in the field, but I want to think about the ways in which the robot is contributing to the success of the mission. And it's just part of the means to the end. I think if we can do that and think of where the robot's going to be and how it's going to be contributing and collaborating with other systems, maybe even other robots, we'll put ourselves at a big advantage.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the key word you kind of hit there was burden, relieving burden, not only just on the warfighter, but also programmatically remove that burden. We've had discussions and talked about before when you are an industry partner and you're just trying to get your product into the hand of the warfighter. Oftentimes to the acquisition and programmatic side of the house, that can be a burden because now they have to spend more time and money trying to fit that solution or refine that solution with partnerships, refine that solution to meet the warfighter's needs. And I think that's what we're trying to get to here with this partnership and the way that we operate and approach the DoD customer is we're refining that to relieve that burden to where they have a more streamlined, usable solution versus I'm getting a piece of equipment or technology that I have to fit, in that's that round hole. So I think you really nailed it with the burden piece for sure.
You don't want to solve one problem and create a new one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we could use a real example to put things in perspective, right? So what would you say are some situations that have occurred in recent years where our collaboration could have helped facilitate a better outcome?
I think there's 2 or 3 areas that I'm really excited about. I feel like introducing our capability will make an instant impact. The first one is EOD and the render safe missions. The second one is CBRN, and the third one is in a subterranean environment. So with render safe, I just love the idea of keeping a guy out of a bomb suit and sending in the robot to do the characterization of the environment and creating an outcome that doesn't involve a child or, an animal like running across the field and coming to like some horrible end. I think that the way that we're doing a lot of the render safe missions is still pretty inefficient because it's such a dangerous mission. So by introducing this really well integrated solution with PS for that use case, I think that that's really encouraging. And our clients around the world are starting to appreciate that. And we're seeing operational adoption with that. And so I'm excited and I hope that that revolutionizes some of the space with EOD. For CBRN, at the end of the day, our warfighters are just spending too much time in PPE. They're spending too much time on bottled air. It's not necessary. I think we're really missing the boat if we're not leveraging robotic solutions with integrated detectors to send that data back to somebody who can then decide if they need to go in and render it, with like clean it with decon or do whatever. Collecting that sampling data might still be something that a warfighter has to go in and do. But what if we can first characterize that environment and let them know what kind of powder they're dealing with, or let them know if there's a splash hazard or, heaven forbid, some sort of radiological hazard. So if we can find a way to leverage our sensor integrations with, the comms and get those guys in communication with a site that may be really difficult to characterize, send the robot in instead, that's good to me. And then the third is subterranean. If you're, keeping up with the news, a lot of the threats that especially the Army is facing have subterranean threats involved. And those areas are also difficult to characterize. So, unknown environments is really a theme where the robots, I think, become really useful. Spot can go into a subterranean environment and determine if there's oxygen to breathe, right? We can do things that might send camera feed back to say, hey, this is a dead end here, or there's a water hazard here, or there's no electric down here, whatever. So I think subterranean is important. It's historically like a really challenging environment to work in. And I don't want us to back down from that. And one of the limiters of a subterranean environment success story is comms. And we've proven in several scenarios, several POCs and exercises now that Spot can work in that environment with the persistent systems network. And I think there's like a evidence right down the street here in the New York subways. I know PS is really successful in helping first responders and things there. So those are the 3 areas that I think are probably the most exciting.
Yeah, with subterranean, we have a proven track record of performing extremely well as a network, providing that data through tunnels and sub-teeth. When you think about problem sets like that, overall, it's really about how, as you mentioned, reducing the risk, make an informed decision by reducing as much risk as possible up front and meeting that decision maker's intent. And that's what we're really trying to get to, is buy down as much risk as possible using this technology, making a better, more informed, risk-reduced decision. And then how can we overmatch? How can that technology actually provide a better solution? How can we team and use that technology to our advantage to either operationally succeed, or maybe it's a rescue, or maybe it's a preparation environment, or we gather intel. So that's really what it comes down to.
I've sort of made it my, desire to find ways to advance the ability for them to do their job more efficiently with less time in PPE. No one, if you haven't tried on, a breathing apparatus or a suit, like those companies work really hard to make really capable equipment, but it's tough. It's hot, you're on a time limit. It just creates more pressure. So anytime we're sending a soldier or an airman or, a sailor into an environment in full PPE to collect CBRN data, to me is a fail. We need to send robots in to do that, to then, prepare the environment. And if a human really needs to go in there, he should have a very simple task to complete and then get off that X. I'll step off the soapbox now.
So being part of the ecosystem has kind of changed the way that you think about mission deployment, would you say? Because we're trying to bring all these partners to not just, put something on a platform and send it out there, but to talk to each other over the network and then provide intelligent information. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. The problem, especially being the end user years ago, was that I have this great capability, but I can't get the data, or I have this great capability, doesn't play nice. Persistent systems, the way that we perceive our place in the market space, in the industry, is to be an ecosystem of solutions. So if you think about it traditionally, companies such as ours, if you want to generically kind of phrase it as, the perception is you're a radio, you transmit data. That's not really who we are. We are a networking capability. That's what we do best. If I come to an end user, maybe a warfighter, or even a commercial partner, it's not necessarily I'm bringing you a data transport system. I'm bringing you a network. I am the network, and I want to network that space. I want to network that battlefield, right? So what we want to do is we want to come to the end user. We want to come to the warfighter or the commercial partner. And as an ecosystem, I bring to the table network capabilities. So without a network of things on the network that we don't collaborate with, you have to have that collaboration to provide a network of things. Otherwise, it's just more work for that end user to say, okay, I have this great network transport. I have this great, capability. Now I have to go out and find A, B, C, and D, get them, put them on the network. It doesn't work as well that way. And that's the way we kind of view our space, our position in the marketplaces. We get phenomenal partnerships. We collaborate. We create a solution. And then with the end user, whoever that may be, we bring to the table a network of things that provide that solution.
Spot is not a useful tool to anyone if it's on an island. So the communication link, getting that tele-op is key. We were at an event in Virginia about a year ago, and we handed a controller to a young sergeant. I guess all sergeants are young these days to me, but handed the controller to the young sergeant, and he was able to drive the SMET, like tele-op, and then load 4 spots onto the back of that SMET. But he was able to completely load that SMET, that robotic controlled vehicle, with quadruped robots, and think creatively about approaching a chemical weapons environment. And so that's like super exciting. The fact that we have a quadruped, so a robot, a ground robot that can navigate dynamic environments, austere environments on 4 legs, with a fully integrated arm. It can pick up an object, it can open a door, it can take a sample, it can move a switch. The fact that we can do that is extremely innovative, but we cannot stop there. So what I like about my job, and the reason why I'm super excited to come to work every day, is because the innovation of Spot and the innovation of PS together, persistent systems together, allows our soldiers, our airmen, to be more innovative about the way they approach their mission. And that to me is exciting. It gets people on the DoD side excited about doing their jobs too. And I think that should be really important to us just as Americans as well. I'm excited, these words are overused, but there is something innovative about a legged robot that has an integrated arm that can open up a door or pick up an object or carry something or maybe even collect a sample. And when you introduce that capability alongside a robust network, and you start thinking about payloads that can go on top of Spot, to maybe make something like what we keep saying, more efficient or just a better way to get a job done. We're excited about that. We can pull a lot from our commercial, POCs and kind of derive like what works well and what doesn't. And I think as a company and our companies together are trying to be extremely conservative about that art of the possible. Yes, it's a dancing robot with an incredibly robust comms network, but what are the things that it will specifically contribute to improve the way jobs are done? We see a lot of those things are like readily apparent in the render safe mission. It's much better for Spot on a strong communications, network, radio to radio, for somebody to teleoperate, a render safe mission than it is for somebody to walk up in a heavy bomb suit on a sweltering hot day and do that same mission. So I'm excited about the future that says, yes, we're teaming humans and machines together, but let's be thoughtful about it and let's really prove out what makes sense before we dive all in and try to see what sticks to the wall.
Yeah. So when you mean places that we're seeing robotics is in reconnaissance, and so tell me, has there been any situational awareness or like recon missions where you've seen or used robotics to achieve mission success?
We're seeing a lot of that in the public safety sector. So we're seeing law enforcement and other agencies such as those get valuable priceless situational awareness data that allows them to inform their operation in a way that we really believe. We have to collect data and see over time, but we're really encouraged by the fact that it seems like the evidence is there to suggest that it enables missions to be done in a more efficient and life-saving way. It is hopefully eliminating shots fired between public safety officers and suspects and things like that. So in the public safety market, we're seeing a lot of that. And I believe some of that can transfer over to the military market as well. There's a well-publicized case recently. A parking garage in New York City collapsed, and we were able to send Spot in to get more information to the firefighters about how they were going to approach that scene and help that casualty. So I think if we continue on this pace with what we're seeing with some of our 1,500 robots that are deployed, we'll start to inform like what the military, might be able to do quickly and efficiently with these partnerships. The human-machine integrated formation work that the Army's doing is sort of putting a bow on all the things that Jake mentioned. Historically, we get all this data, and there was a time, probably a decade ago, where we were really excited to get that data. Now what we're seeing out of Ukraine and some of the other conflicts is that there's this rapid evolution of not only information that tells us what to do in the moment, but also kind of can influence the next steps that we might take and allow for corrective actions or, new decisions to be made about those next steps in an operation. So hopefully time will tell, but I think we're onto something here. I think the military appreciates that. And at the end of the day, it's all about, reducing collateral damage, reducing, just these nightmarish situations and keeping people out of harm's way.
I think in past, from my experience, you're looking at the timeline of the intelligence gathering picture being very long. Multiple capabilities, where say you fly, for example, a UAV and you get image data, you post-process that, then you need to collaborate with maybe signals intelligence, and that's another platform. And traditionally our solution was let's get a platform and put both on the flat platform and do it at the same time, but it really doesn't pay down on the efficiency of that manpower piece. And we really have to ask yourself, when you go to the DoD, the military now, in the acquisition space as an industry partner, one, that warfighter, how am I making that warfighter more efficient? How am I making his risk lower? And then how can I get him on the X faster? He or she, how can I get them on the X faster, make them more efficient operationally on the X and get them out quicker? And that's through refined information. I noticed in the past, the more information that's fed into that operational chain, those items are met. If you go in less information, risk is up. There's inefficiencies there. So I think really, if you keep that in mind with, partnerships, technologies, what are we doing to enable that is the core component. It's really key to really asking yourself, if I'm developing this in my partnership, what area am I enhancing? Am I making the warfighter quicker to make a decision, more efficient to and from the X. So I think that's really a basis for get away from, I need multiple platforms, but I'm still using the older methods of a whole team of people having to analyze. Let's do multiple platforms and or multiple capabilities on a platform that process on the edge, that refine the information quicker, faster, make decisions easier and quicker.
So from what I'm hearing, basically with the wider adoption of collaborative technology, we're having a massively positive impact on the community and protecting human life, right? So having a robot being a part of the team as opposed to just being an asset, it's a different way of approaching like our strategic deployments, right? So is the government thinking about deployment in robotics differently, or should they be?
I do think they are. And touching on the human-machine integration formation work, getting out of those traditional CBRN and EOD use cases and broadening them to the fact that we might be doing, fighting in highly austere environments, or perhaps on small islands, or perhaps in, terrain that's really rugged. How can we enable a robot to go in and maybe collect more data, like what Jake is talking about, and inform before we send people in to actually then do those next steps? So I do think that the military is changing. I think the UAS, where your expertise lies so well, I think the UAS efforts have really challenged the way, and in a positive way, challenged them to say, oh, hey, we can get, a relatively low dollar item into the air, or a really capable quadruped onto the ground, and get some of this work out of the way before we send all these precious resources and human lives into a situation.
I think in a sense, the government, in my humble opinion, should be thinking more about how they resource robotics. I think they're really intelligent and they're making great decisions about what technologies they need. And I think they understand where they need to go. I think the thought process can be put more into how they resource to those technologies. And when they come down to writing their CDGs or requirements in their programmatics, I think it should be solution-based, outcome-based. They should start with their documents, writing the requirements on, I need an ABC solution, and then really opening up the proposal market space to whether that be a ground or a combination of ground, air, or, surface, subsurface. I think really we should kind of, in that area, look more towards how we resource too, because, traditionally we would fly an aircraft over and gather intelligence. In our next, near peer operations of theater, you may not be able to have the luxury of flying an aircraft over whatever territories, visual signals, signatures. You have a lot of things to worry about. So it may become in different form factors, and, paint yourself in a corner when it comes to requirements, I think is an important thing to be cognizant of in the future, because there may be collaborative technologies out there that meet the need out, and they're thinking outside the box that maybe you're just kind of stuck in that acquisition mode, not realizing.
As well. Yeah. And I kind of want to touch on that and get a little bit more specific, right? So you mentioned airmen, but aren't we trying some things with the U.S. Army?
Yes.
Like what are we doing there with their strategic approach to deployment?
Yeah,
like what are we changing?
The human-machine integrated formation piece out of the RICTO office, I think, is the Army evolving to try to help companies over that valley of death and say we understand what our end state is, but we're going to try earlier in the process to get everybody to play nice. And Jake has a lot of experience with that on the acquisition side, getting all those pieces to create like a good recipe for success. I think that the Army traditionally is incredible users of robots for EOD, and we have great partnerships on the tracked vehicle side. We don't see ourselves as competitors to those products. They're looking at it as a family of systems. SOCOM is looking as robots across weight classes and capabilities as a family of systems. So it's really saying, here's another tool. It's not meant to take the place of a soldier. It's meant to enable a mission to be done effectively and efficiently with the least amount of damage, bring that soldier home, accomplish the mission in the best way, but use this robot on, a strong network to do it. The Army in particular, I think, is doing a great job of thinking beyond just the traditional robotics use cases. So not just EOD, not just chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, which are trusted, mission sets for robots, but thinking about austere communications environments, thinking about preparation of an environment, with those reconnaissance things that I know you can speak to much better than I can. I'm thinking about ISR, about just beyond just kind of those traditional things. So I'm excited about this modular mission payload approach that the Army is talking about. There's something like 7 to 11 different use cases that they have in mind. And, by working with persistent systems, we can bring those LiDAR capabilities or those thermal imaging or acoustic things to create that forward line of sensors that I think the Army is hoping to see in their future OV1s.
Yeah, you think about it too. It's not just the capabilities tracked, quadruped, unmanned. If we look at the next generation of warfighter human machine teaming, that's going to be, AI complementary. So there's going to be high rates of information that's processed, that needs to be processed on the edge too. And you're going to need UAVs to transport data. Mm-hmm. You may need a tracked vehicle to transport. You may need a UAV or tracked vehicle to also deliver quadruped or tracked vehicles in the field. And you and I are actually working on partnerships to try and demonstrate that, right? And we've done that before. You've done that before, Boston Dynamics. But really thinking about the way that we have a more high refined process solution in the future, you need to be able to collaborate and network all those technologies there, because you have to get as a warfighter. That warfighter may be heavily and far removed from that battle space or that information gathering space, or they might be, rather relatively short. But either way, those things need to talk to each other, because what we want to provide is a common picture solution that's intelligent and that's a process solution, not just that raw data from each sensor. So where do we see it in the future? Robotics, unmanned systems, uncrewed systems, they're going to gather this data, they're going to process this information, and they're going to provide a refined solution that's processable by decision makers and not necessarily heavily manpowered, as we talked about earlier, really centric to post-processing. We're trying to, I think the DoD is getting away from the whole long-term, long-run, manpower-driven post-processing. And I think that's, from my experience, the future of robotics and unmanned systems is that we process on the edge, we deliver a decision-making package of information. So you got to have that network. You have to have that collaboration. You can't have company A as a UAS not want to work with company B who's a tracked. And you and I have actually talked about some of our track partnerships within our ecosystem that there's interest there. We welcome them into, like you said, the quadruped's totally different. You look at, future program records like FOSUGs, there's requirements for quadrupeds, there's requirements for tracked vehicles. We would love to see more collaboration between those two capabilities. And I think I can relate to if I had a proposition that had two different companies provide similar in a program record capabilities like tracked and quadruped on the same network, turnkey, ready for me to deliver a solution. That would be amazing.
They should demand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Boston Dynamics recently joined our Wave Relay ecosystem as a partner. What does that actually mean for us to be partnering together?
Our approach to the market in the DoD space, even commercial space, it's really about these partnerships and bring together that network of things, that network of capabilities that are a solution provided. We're not just introducing technology or hardware or software solutions or a mixture thereof. We're bringing together technologies and solutions on a network. My past experience, in the acquisitions area of military life, it was a challenge. It was a serious challenge to take technologies and piece and fit them into a requirement. Usually you're either stuck writing a requirement and you send that out into the void and you hope that that industry meets those challenges and they submit proposals. And you may spend time massaging those technologies, but what we're really looking for is a more elegant solution. We want to introduce to those contracting officers, as acquisition specialists, those senior assessors, a solution that really makes them think, well, I have something I can really resource to rather quickly. I don't have to invest a lot of RDT&E dollars into this. I can press the easy go button. Or even if we are not providing a solution that's immediately comparable to what they're looking for, they know that within our ecosystem, we have a collaboration of partners that they could say, hey, I really need these requirements met, and they can resource those and we can meet that challenge.
Yes. And it's been wonderful. And I can't say enough good things about what it means to be an ecosystem partner. Sometimes you sign these agreements and they don't really grow or develop into what you hope. But what I like is that PS and BD together can anticipate what the military might be asking us for. And we're putting engineers on problems. We're putting business development specialists and, people with a lot of expertise, on the ground together to say, what would it look like to actually field this capability? Getting back to the concept of the robot and the radios not being the end, but, enabling our warfighters to meet their mission and just being a part of those means to the end. So I'm excited about it. I think, it's important to recognize some of the limitations that the military has as they develop new technologies. And so hopefully our collaboration can allow us to get ahead of some of this stuff and bring something that's more kind of ready baked and ready to field than we would be if we were working together, but not so closely.
Yeah. My past experience in acquisitions, because I did dabble a little bit.
You survived? I
survived an acquisition stint. I wrote a desk right before I retired at NSW. But as a requirements kind of arm of the military, one of my challenges I saw and we sought after was technologies and assessing those technologies. So we oftentimes had to take on ourselves to go out, find the technologies, research the newest technologies and capabilities out there, go assess companies, see if they're valid, see if they can actually do production run rates, see if their technology actually is what they say it is. So the challenge there is not only the time it takes to kind of invest in where you want to go as a warfighter or even, an acquisition specialist that supports that warfighter. I think you and I, collaborating with our companies together are providing more of a solution that's collaborative, helps meet the needs, per se, not necessarily, compensating for that acquisition movement, but we're not in a vacuum. So the experience I saw a lot was companies are out there just developing items, developing technologies and capabilities in a vacuum without any input from the warfighter, without, minimal input from the industry. A lot of it kind of feeds on what's the hot topic. I'm going to go chase that butterfly in DoD. And I think what we do, along with other partnerships, what we see is we're bringing together that package of collaborative technologies that we're trying to meet the needs of the warfighter as best we can. We encourage DoD to reach out, and if they want to collaborate more, help steer and guide what we want to do. And I think what our next project is going to provide the warfighter in the realm of reconnaissance is going to be spectacular. We're looking at anywhere from 5 to 7 different capabilities, bringing in other companies. So this next project over the next year is going to be pretty phenomenal. And I think, if I was still in acquisitions, I'd be pretty welcoming to a group of technologies coming to me and saying, hey, we want to do a full cycle solution of technologies. We want to provide this, put this on your doorstep and let you just go with it. Because that was oftentimes the problem. I would work with a great technology partner, and then we would need another component to that solution. And that would require another company coming in. And then either those two companies would not work well with each other, or they didn't want to do the project at all. So we want to kind of mitigate that by finding like-minded, driven companies and the partnerships, and then provide that to the warfighter. I think it's going to be great.
And that's one place where the military is really going right now. If you ask me, at least when you talk to the requirements groups, they're saying we need modularity here, and they're finally demanding, and they're saying we need you to have an open network, we need you to have an open architecture, we need you to be considerate of the other demands that we might need on your platform. So if we can get this right, the robot needs a radio. Robots, communications are crucial to robot success. I talked to our general manager, who's just a really sharp guy, Zach Jakowski, early, like my second or third day of work. And I said, okay, you're brilliant. What's the most important thing you can tell me about robots? And he said, robots need comms. And that's when I called PS. Yeah. And so I'm excited about that. I think if we can show face and say, hey, it doesn't have to be this hard. At least we can have this platform, this comms backbone set up, put whatever you need to on top of it that's going to help preserve life and keep the human out of harm's way. I think that's an exciting thing to work on.
Absolutely. And the quadruped capability, I think, is kind of a undiscovered gem, especially when it comes to some of the traditional, special reconnaissance roles.
Yeah.
If you look at a ground robot, traditional tracked vehicles, I don't think they fit the environment when it comes to how you perform reconnaissance preparation of the environment. I think the quadruped really complements that. Austere terrains, hide sites, things like that.
Subterranean.
Sub-T. And if you can get other companies to put backpack capabilities on that quadruped, and then we take those capabilities in the quadruped and we network that back to a common solution for, theater and strategic commanders, I think that's a win. I think
that's why we're here. Yeah. Good.
We need to overmatch those technologies, and we need to be prepared to go into environments and collect data, collect information, know our operational theaters, but you need to do that with less. And unfortunately, they have to do it with less money as well. So collaborating, technologies coming together, partnerships, that really buys down costs to the warfighter. So if I'm an acquisitions specialist or I'm writing CDDs or requirements and I need 5 line items of capabilities, and I have to go out and I have to spend RDT&E dollars to help each company develop towards that goal, it's really eating away at my budget and most likely won't happen. If we come together on our own and we develop on our own and we present to that DoD, that member, that customer, if we present to them a very capable solution that's in the direction they need to be, we're buying down costs. So I think if you look at the technology side and the way that we want to look at intelligence gathering, more in the sense of probing the edge of where we need to be and where we're allowed to be, and gathering that intelligence there when it comes to collaborating on the edge with technologies is key as well, along with delivery. So multi-environment delivery is going to be very key. Everything from air to water to ground. And how do you get those technologies there? And I would say all three. So your capability needs to be capable in those environments because, we have multiple threats around the globe that they involve all those environments and all at once. So, cost reduction, multi-environment processing on the edge, those are really key.
And I say the DoD has a data problem. And so whoever can get ahead of that data is going to win the day. And that's why, again, this ecosystem partnership is so important. I can put amazing detectors and amazing, assets on top of that robot. But if I can't get that data back in a timely manner that's going to make an impact to a commander, it's just all for naught. So just demanding together that we have a capability that will be robust enough to meet those ends when we get it fielded is, I think, how we've self-tasked our companies. And I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited about the fact that when the military is looking at that, they realize that that's the goal that they should be asking for. And I think that we're putting ourselves at a great advantage, and therefore our military at a great advantage by thinking about this before those requirements come out.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're eliminating that problem set where, the military or the government has all these different solutions that they found, but none of them talk to each other. None of them work together. But now, with partners coming together in an ecosystem where they already talk to each other, we're solving that problem and bringing them the solution, and then they're good to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we want to do. We would deliver a turnkey solution, multiple partnerships on an ecosystem, and we're doing that.
What does this all mean for the future of warfare? So what? We're doing all this. So what? We're already working together. So what? We're coming to the table with a turnkey solution. Are they actually going to use it? Is it actually going to make a difference? What is it?
I'm glad that you're challenging us on this because it is difficult. When I'm married to a military retiree, and I kind of challenge him sometimes. I say, is this something you would use? Is this something you would use? We need to make sure we're not just burdening the logistics and sustainment and training tails of all of, we're already taxed, adding this stuff. We really have to make it so it's so impactful, it's undeniably valuable to these teams. And I think that is what we know, our neck is on the line to provide that. And if we don't provide that, it will be an expensive paperweight. And no one wants that. I don't want to be a part of that. I know our companies don't want to be a part of that. So it's, the onus is on us to create such a capable solution that we're no longer using that printed map, that we're no longer doing things the way they were before, that it is clear that the way this task is done optimally is through this robot radio collaboration, and that there's never a question, is there a better way to do it? It's this way. And maybe that's not for all the missions that they've identified so far, but it is undeniable to me that the EOD missions, that the Chem Bio Rad Nuke missions, and that the communications and austere environment missions are done better by a robot. And so if we start with those, I think that's where we build that foundational work, and then we go from there.
It will be used. I would dare say even our peers are on the same alignment of
Yes.
those same technologies. They want to do the same deterrence. They want to process on the edge. They want to swarm. They want to collaborate. So I think it's a match over match kind of ratio we want to create. If we can get ahead of our peers, that's key. But I absolutely do think that warfare will change in the sense of where we are, how many warfighters in place, and what technologies enhance that capability. That operational picture will be used and is being used and is being planned for, budgeted out. You made a great point, Kim. The logistics tail on it is a huge piece that I think seldom gets looked over. And I think the largest challenge when you look at that logistics piece with new technologies is training.
Mm-hmm.
If we can reduce training through either AI processes, collaborative technologies, the better. We don't have time to train single professionals to do single job things that are either support or operator, driven. So the more collaborative, the more processing on the edge that we can do, the more we can make an autonomous piece. We need technology and machines that go in with the team and be a part of the team that holds their weight, that finds a job, fills a job smartly, and does it without, the human in the loop. It does it with the human on the loop to make decisions.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Jake, for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here and having a conversation with us about what's coming next for the networked battlefield.
Thanks, Victoria. I'm really excited to see the contribution we can make here.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Kim, is great. It's a pleasure. We're really excited to do great things with Boston Dynamics, and Kim and I work really good together, so it's always great to get together.
Wonderful. And to you guys, please make sure you join the conversation by leaving your thoughts and comments down below. I want to know how you think QUGVs can change the landscape of how we operate today. We'll see you next time.